Hello. So here we are, Sunday, and today I've had a couple of people ask me what I do for meditation, so I thought I would talk about that today. And if you're new to my channel, I talk about ascension, decoding, the true nature of our reality, all that sort of stuff. So everybody's welcome. Just be mindful and respectful of everybody and be kind. And if you're not so kind, then you're going to get booted. But yeah, you have to be a subscriber for at least 5 minutes to comment. And yeah, that's about it, I think. First things first, I wanted to mention I released an edited version of the Poseidon Adventure on my main channel, and it's missing quite a bit of information from the original. So if you haven't seen the original, it is well worth your while. There's a lot of information in there that is not in that video. It is a bonus video for anyone who has contributed over $30. So if you have contributed and you have access to the unlocked section, then just use the same password and you can get in there and watch the video if you haven't seen it already. So if you're here, let me know you're here. Say hi in the chat. And I'm going to wait until there's a few people here before I start sharing any info. Watched a video today where a number file was doing a math problem. He wrote 1 divided by x, but the way he wrote x was to draw a C one way and a C as a mirror image connecting the two together. Yeah, I've written x that way before too, Joe Mama. Yeah, that's interesting. Interesting little insight. CC33, Christ consciousness. X, Twitter. Well, X represents Christ, right? Xmas. And X is a kiss, true love's kiss. Leaves of grass. Hello. Anybody else see anything interesting? Any interesting clips, video, insights? Anybody have anything interesting happen to them? I had a little thing. On Friday, I was at my parents' and we were watching Heartbeat as usual. And in the episode, the whole episode was about the moon landing. And one of the characters, of course, was one of the crazy characters, pointed out that the moon landing was staged, filmed in advance, and it was fake. And she even tried to prove it by going home and taking Polaroids of her cousin or nephew, whatever, dressed up as an astronaut, and to prove to the people in the neighborhood that it was fake. But then they found out that she took the pictures because she didn't say that she took them. She lied about it. So she got caught in a lie. And instead of actually recognizing that she was able to pull it off to make them believe that those were real pictures so they could have as well, they laughed at her and said, well, you know, you're the liar, not them. And so they ended up making it that she started to believe the footage that was shown from NASA. So I was like, wow, what a way to manipulate people, planting the suggestion that it's not real, putting it in the mouth of the wackadoo, providing evidence of how they would have done it, and then taking it, flipping it back. So they play both sides and really mess with your mind. So I'm sitting there smiling. I thought it was funny, but my parents didn't say a word, and I didn't say anything either. I wasn't going to. Been down that road already, but I did find it funny. So anyway, on the way home, I was in my car playing the radio, and Rocket Man by Elton John was on the radio, and the moon was this sort of orangey red color. So that was kind of funny. Cece, hi there. Saw a rainbow after a large storm at Lake Powell this week. It was also near Natural Rainbow Bridge. Oh, cool. Seal Lion has been doing a lot of cool synchro stuff on YouTube Shorts. Yes, I've noticed that. Yeah. Hello from Mexico. Don't forget to hit the like button. Thanks, Natasha. Yeah. It's nice to see Seal Lion is back and making videos. So, yeah, I was just asking anybody had any interesting insights, any experiences they wanted to share, or videos you've seen, or anything before we get into talking about meditation techniques. I mean, yeah, I'm just talking about it because people are asking me. So I want to hear what other people do. I'm not any meditation expert or anything. I just going to share what I do. So I'd like to hear what you do. And all right, well, I'm just going to get into it then because nobody has anything else to share. So, okay, I shared my original, my story of how I started into meditation when I was in Mexico. Reina is here. I go into highway hypnosis a lot while driving and consider that part of my practice. Yeah, so I started meditating. I'm pretty sure I started in Mexico. I might have started before that, but it was in 2008, and I had this experience on the beach after doing yoga, and it was guided meditation. And basically saw the entirety of the universe. Everything was just this beautiful golden color, and felt in a state of bliss the whole day. So, that to me was quite a powerful experience. I've not been able to replicate it, and I don't encourage you to try and replicate any experience because you can't. Since then, I would meditate regularly after I do yoga. I would take yoga classes and I would meditate after that. Not that that's really anything extremely powerful, because if you're at a gym and you're meditating after class, it's usually just a short couple of minutes, and so you can't really get anywhere. But at least, it's starting the habit. And because it's a practice, it's not something that you do just once and it's done. It's something that you need to practice. And a lot of people will try, not get anywhere, and give up. And I know some people who are very, I guess, perfectionistic, feel that they shouldn't do anything if they aren't successful at it at the first try, which is kind of ridiculous, but that's a lot of people's assumption is, if I can't do it, then I'm not going to do it. Not, I'm new at this, I'm going to learn how to do it, and give yourself a break. So a lot of people give up before they start, and it's about the practice. So yeah, I would do meditation after class, and there were times where I would just meditate on and off. I wasn't like a huge meditator after that. I tried a few things, but it wasn't like a dedicated practice. Not until after, I don't even know when. Like, I really started to take it seriously, I would say, in 2017. And I don't know, I was just really tuned in. I was also working on law of attraction and elevating my frequency. So, like, working on my mind and appreciation and all of these sorts of things. So I had a very set sort of routine. I would go on walks, and so in the morning I went for a walk, what I would call my appreciation walk or gratitude walk. So while I was walking, I would say mantras to myself about things that I appreciate. And it would be like simple things like the weather, or, things that I like about the weather. There was one year where I appreciated the sunshine, and I ended up going out for walks when the sun was out, even when it was super overcast. And I ran into this person who had complained that the passing season was cloudy all the time. And I said, well, that's interesting, because I found it sunny because I had appreciated the sunshine so much. And yeah, so I would do that. I would get up in the morning, go for a walk, do my appreciation walk. And it wasn't about the exercise, it was about the appreciation. So that was the focus. The exercise was a bonus. And then later in the day, I would go for a run or exercise at the gym or whatever. And then I would meditate again. And so I was in a bit of a routine at that time. And I was really good at manifesting in that period. And so what I would do was just very simple. I would just sit in silence and focus on a spot on my head. So, like, look at as if I was looking here with my eyes closed, and just stop all my thoughts. Or I would focus on the noise in the background in the distance and imagine myself able to see far off in the distance. So we have a lake around here, so I would imagine myself being able to see the lake. Or if I heard a bird, that I would be able to see the bird. Or, cross the ocean to another country, that sort of thing. So I was focusing on expanding my horizons. And so that was pretty much my technique, and whatever was presented in yoga class at the end. So then the following, 2017, I was very much into law of attraction and talking to the universe, and all of these things played into one another, because it's tied into mindfulness, it's tied into appreciation, paying attention to your reality, that sort of thing. And then meditation wise, I started to meditate for a long period of time. Now, I had the luxury of having a flexible schedule, and so I had the opportunity to meditate for an hour. So I'd play some music that was no lyrics, very soothing. I would do binaural beats, or music that was a certain frequency, or had music that I liked. It's not something that you can pick up a tune or anything. It's not supposed to be that, because you don't want it to take your mind and focus on the music. You want the music to be helpful in calming your energy and calming your thoughts. So you just sort of breathe with the music. So yeah, like, that was another thing, is you focus on your breath. If there are thoughts that plague you, you just focus on your breath. And I would would also do breathing techniques while I was doing my appreciation walks. And the breathing techniques were nothing complicated. It was just, I was doing things like breathing in for a count of 4, holding it for a count of 7, and breathing out for a count of 8, and repeating that over and over again. And then I would also do techniques where I would try and hold my breath for as long as possible and just increase the count every time. Then I would also do like Tony Robbins. I've gone through a lot of his practices, and so I picked up one of his techniques, which was touching the fingers as you walk. So I would breathe and then count 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever you prefer. But it was this keeps your focus and keeps you connected. So, you know, your fingers are also energy centers. So when you do mudras and such, you're creating an energy center. So you touch these fingers, and it's about connecting your connecting your body and your mind, but also connecting your fingers and sort of like a hand-eye coordination type of thing. Not hand-eye coordination, but I don't know what I'm trying to say. You get the idea. It's like some sort of coordination, just to be connected to your body. And I don't know if it helped or not, but it certainly didn't hurt. So yeah, when I started to meditate for an hour, that's when magical things started to happen, because you get into a flow, or you get into a zone where you let go of where you are physically, and you go into sort of like a dark space, which is your mind. But you start to feel like you're traveling somehow, and you can see things, you know, like usually when you close your eyes, it's kind of like just in front of you. You can just see the space in front of you. But after you sit there for a while and lose contact with the physical around you, it starts to expand. And I was playing with what I could see while I was meditating. So in some cases, I could see like physical objects, what look like cities, what look like buildings, spaces, you know, traveling. I don't know how to explain it, but it's not like traveling in the traditional sense, in the physical sense. It's like traveling in your mind or in your thoughts, and but without thought. It's just traveling in the space of your mind. So that was interesting. And what else did I see? So yeah, it was really quite a journey once I started to do it for over an hour. And I was doing that quite regularly. And then I was also exercising a lot, going into nature, and still doing the appreciation stuff. Meanwhile, my whole life was in a state of chaos. So I guess that was like things just changing because they needed to. So, you know, all of this stuff was happening in my life on the external that was kind of counter to what was going on internally. And it was as if Source was like, hang on a second, where are you going here? This isn't working with your life on the external. Let's just mix it up and dump it. So anyway, I got to a point too where I started to work with a partner who was Tara. And Tara and I, we used to do meditation together. and we would try to reach each other and connect to each other through meditation. And so we used to do that. That was fun. And there were certain things where we used to try to visualize the same place at the same time. And we were on the phone at the time, so we would talk to each other about what we saw. And so it was kind of remarkable, some of the same things we saw. So, I mean, I've tried a lot of different things. I've tried like listening to music. I tried like I sit down, sort of, the pyramid pose, and I will sit in the park. I'll sit in the park now and face the sun and meditate there. Sometimes listening to music, sometimes not. And then I meditate at night or in the middle of the day, lying down. And sometimes I'll fall asleep while I do it. And what I've also ended up moving towards is meditating while asking questions, and I get answers back. And then I moved into also automatic writing, which is kind of a more like alert form of the same thing. And so often, like when I go to bed, I take some time and just ask questions. And I have sometimes I had set practices that I would do to get myself into state. So one of the things that I do or did do, I don't do it anymore, is if I had a hard time getting into state, I would count backwards. So it's kind of, in a way, a little bit of a hypnosis technique. I would visualize levels, and I would say, well, by the time so I'd start at 10 and I'd work my way down to 1. And I'd say, by the time I get to 1, then I will be in meditation mode. And so I'd start at 10 and I'd go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then I would breathe with it. So I would be like exhaling and inhaling at the same time. So breathe in and breathe out while I'm counting. And then I would go back up to 9 and go 9, 8, 7, 6. I'll do it slower than that until I get down to 1. And then by that time, because I had practiced it so much, without fail, I would always snap into my meditation mode. And I would be it's almost like I would be in this place, sort of like like a place in my head is where it was taking me. So that was a good technique that was reliable, because it was something that was very simple, something I could do, that I could rely on. And it helped me to focus on, by counting and breathing, helped me focus on that, not all the crap in my head, all the thoughts that are trying to distract me. And then it helped me get into state. The other thing I would do, I would use that kind of technique similarly to do past life regressions. So I've done past life regressions, I think 4 times now. The first time I did it assisted with a YouTube video. I can't find it anymore, but it was really good. And it basically was a very similar tactic. You visualize yourself going either up or down a set of stairs. So you visualize the stairs, you visualize what they feel like, what they look like, as much detail as possible. And then you go up the stairs, you go down the stairs, whatever you want, and then go into a hallway with a set of doors. And so you visualize the hallway with the doors, and then you pick a door, and you say to yourself, when I walk through this door, I will be in my past life. And in some cases, you can say, I want to go back to a particular past life. I did that once. I said, I want to go back to a past life. if I had one with this particular person and show me what that was like, and it worked. And then in other cases, it was just show me any past life. So anyway, it's like the first time I went through this door, you visualize the door handle and you turn it, and then you step into the door. And I was really surprised at how clear and vivid the visualization was. And so I walked into the door, and they tell you to examine what you're wearing on your feet. What do you see? And move your way up. And so it's about focusing on simple little things first, and then moving into bigger things. And then you can examine your surroundings, who's there, what's going on, jump to another important moment in your life. And then, so I did that, jump to another important moment in that life. And it was so vivid. It was kind of shocking. So that's another technique. It's very similar. And like I said, like now I do this technique where I have conversations, and I found that to be very helpful in finding clarity on certain issues, or making connections, seeing things from a different perspective, getting insights. There was one time where I was meditating quite regularly during COVID, because we all had lots of time. And I had a really clear, vivid vision of like Ahura Mazda appeared. And it was kind of like a stagnant image, but it came at me quite vividly. I don't know, it was very weird, the whole experience, but I only felt love. It was as if, it's really interesting because it's as if you feel the frequency of it and interpret it to what it means to us here. And so what I felt it was love and acceptance and support, that kind of energy. So that was interesting. And I don't usually see like all of those lights, and there was a lot of lights, and you don't usually see images like that. So that was interesting too. But like, the goal is to be a walking meditation and understanding you are the observer. Saying hi, meditation is a spiritual practice that takes ongoing effort, consistency. You say it's not meant to be easy. Yeah, ongoing for sure. Hi, Nat. So, I mean, do you have any questions about what I said? Because I know I was a little all over the place. My energy right now is a mess. So I apologize if it was unclear. But if you have any questions about that, or if you have any of your own techniques you want to share, please do. So the technique with asking questions, I mean, I'm talking to myself, basically, or an aspect of myself. So I give it a name as if it's like an entity, and just talk to it. You know, I go into, again, like I create a bit of a routine so that it makes me feel like I've connected. And I'll sit there and ask questions and listen for the answer. And then what I appreciate about the process is, while I'm asking the question, you know, I'm listening to myself. So I become more mindful. I'm mindful of the kind of questions that I'm asking. I'm mindful of what I'm focusing on. I'm mindful of my energy, how I'm asking. And it's not always perfect. Sometimes I'm angry and frustrated, and it's like, why is this happening? This kind of thing. But I always get this unconditional acceptance and love in return, which in itself is just worth the experience, because and I've mentioned this before, understanding how to how to even talk to yourself, or starting with talking to yourself or talking to others is a huge gift to connect with this energy and say you're having a hard time, and you're like, maybe you're upset with someone, or you're upset with yourself, or you're just like, I think I made a mistake today and I feel really bad about it. And you get this answer back that's like, everybody makes mistakes. It's not a big deal. You didn't hurt anybody. And the other person isn't seeing it the way that you're seeing it, this sort of thing. And it's not like you're, even, there's times where I've said something like, oh, I feel like I made a mistake. And the response is, well, everything can be repaired. It's not at the end of the day. If you feel like you've made a mistake, then correct it. So it's not like there's any judgment or anything, but it's not like it's like letting you off the hook if you did do something that needs to be repaired. So that kind of communication is like, witnessing that kind of communication is priceless, because I aspire to be more like that, which is so hard. It's so hard when you're conditioned to have all this negativity, and dealing with this world of duality and people hating on you or saying nasty things to you or whatever. It's not easy to always be in a state like that. So sometimes I will think, well, how would that be my response if I was in that state? So it's a good example to look up to, but it's difficult to stay in that state for sure. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's about it. Yeah, like, people around me are totally on a different wavelength. Yeah. Hey, nobody knows. Welcome. So yeah, it's I'd like to hear if you have any questions or anything about what I've said, or if you got anything of your own to share, your techniques and what you do. Aw, thank you. Yeah, I found this and pulled it out, and I thought I better wear it, because I put away all my nice clothes with COVID and everything, and then I realized, like, I don't have any nice clothes, and so I found all my nice clothes and pulled them out. So, I mean, how many of you meditate? I would imagine you all meditate. Yes, Ixie? Who meditates? And what do you do? Do you have any difficulties or questions, or I'm trying but always falling asleep? Yeah, I fall asleep too, especially if I'm lying down and going to, it's right before bed, which I don't mind so much because it helps me sleep. But if I was going to, be a little stricter about it, I'd probably sit up and not lie down, and that would help with not falling asleep. And try to do it in the middle of the day as opposed to at the end of the day. But I know a lot of people, you got busy lives, you got to do it when you can. So, that Ixie, stop it. Hey, come here. Come here. Yeah, what do you need? What do you need? Come here. Come on. She's been sleeping all day, and now all of a sudden she's got to get up. So, does nobody meditate? I mean, reflective sitting, not set, seclude, and morning walks. Stephen Snowman. Hello. Not set, seclude, and morning walks. Yeah, that's helpful. Not set schedule. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, there are times where I do find that there's other ways of meditating, like with that aren't just dedicated, meditation techniques. But so when I go for a run, if I go for a walk or go for a run, I find that clears my head, obviously, and some inspiration will come to me then. And I was on a run when I had the insight into get into my car, and I came home and I made the video. So there's been a few times where major insights have come to me while I was on a run or a walk. And I've heard a lot of times people who exercise, especially vigorous exercise, because you're focused on breathing, and you're focused on the physical exertion, so you don't have any space in your head for anything else. So that's helpful too. I can meditate while cleaning my flat, while listening to classical music and smoking weed at the same time. Yeah, that's helpful. I find cleaning is very helpful because as much as I don't, there's sometimes where I don't want to do cleaning. I do find that it's helpful because you're paying attention to simple things, physical things, tactile things, and it's very grounding. And you're not distracted by a lot of stuff on the internet or anything. So it does help a lot to do cleaning for sure. I prefer silent walks in the woods, but I need to try to sit and meditate more. Yeah, that's helpful too, because it's very quiet in the woods and you're around nature, and definitely helps. I do find that I end up thinking a lot, though. It's beneficial in terms of having a change of scenery, getting a fresh perspective on things, and not getting. But I do find I'm still in my head thinking a lot of the time when I'm walking, or not so much running, but walking. Anyone else? I mean, there's not really there's no wrong way of doing it. There's a lot of different things you can find online to help you with it, and you just have to find what's right for you. So some people like to meditate with music, sitting up, lying down, sitting outside while they're walking, in a quiet room, in a dark space, after they do yoga. There's all sorts of ways of doing it. And You can do a guided meditation, have somebody, online guide you through it with some reassuring thoughts and positive affirmations and that sort of thing. So that's helpful too. I meditate several times a day, usually outside. Oh, cool. Hi, Trixie. What kind of techniques do you use when you're meditating outside? I've had some really nice experiences meditating outside in the park, actually, because there was one time where I was lying on the ground and I could see the park in my mind's eye with my eyes closed. It was really interesting. It was really quite cool. But as I said, you can't replicate any experience, so that was a one-off. But I was starting to get some really good experiences, and then, but that was during COVID, so it was very quiet. And now there's regular baseball and football games in the park, so it's not as easy to get a quiet space to sit. I don't know what that's supposed to mean, Trixie. So if nobody has anything else to add about meditation, is there anything else you want to talk about? Because I thought this was a subject people wanted to discuss, but possibly not. So yeah, there hasn't really been a whole lot going on this past week. This past week has been kind of strange. Use several techniques. Sit and drink coffee daily with my dog and listen to the birds and go for walks or hikes. Had an inner vision seeing the place I am at with my eyes closed. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, listen to videos on subjects I'm exploring. Yeah, good. I just found that it strengthened my connection with the universe, strengthened my connection with the other side, strengthened my ability to gain insights, to be more mindful of my thoughts or how I express myself. I don't have as much chatter in my head. I have some, but I do notice when it's useless chatter and I stop it. But then there's times where I have useless chatter and I don't even know how to get rid of it. So I do yoga or exercise. Okay. And some good techniques. So yeah, there's huge benefits in meditation. I use it as a reset to be conscious throughout my day, and I try to do it until the chatter is gone. I use it as a reset as well. If I'm having either a hard day, frustration, not feeling that great, I will just go and meditate for a while, sometimes nap, and start over. And I usually feel much better. So it also helps you, like trains you to be in touch with your energy and trains you to be in touch with how you feel, how you want to feel, I do find too that, especially lately, you can get to a point where if you're doing it too much, it can get exhausting. I did get to a point where I was just tired of it. I was tired of every day going out to get my frequency up. You know, I just felt like it shouldn't be that hard. It shouldn't be, you know, there should be something else that would help to naturally keep you in that state. And so like the daily walks, the appreciation walks while they worked, I just got tired of it. I got tired of, you know, trying to constantly change my state, or, you know, I don't like how I feel, so let's change it. And it gets a little exhausting, even though when I recognize that I'm in a sort of state that I don't like, I recognize it and I let myself feel it first. But yeah, you can get to a point where it's too much and it gets to be annoying. That's true, because I feel like I can validate myself a lot more after meditating. Yeah, looks like I missed what I needed to hear. Yeah, Adam, but welcome. Yeah, I was the whole first part of this, I guess I just was talking about all my meditation techniques and stuff. Helps me connect and then move from that feeling. Yeah. So I find meditation is a very gentle way of moving on from something you don't want to feel, or situation that you're in that you don't want to be in. But don't overdo it, you know? Don't like, I have to meditate, I have to. Then that's kind of defeating the purpose. But it definitely has a positive effect, that's for sure. In many ways, probably a lot of ways I don't even know, but it can be about witnessing and not change. Yeah, that's a good point, Trixie, for sure. Somebody pointed that out in a comment that I saw today. Well, a post they made, and it was to do with this, that awakening isn't about trying to be something else. It's about fully accepting who you already are. And I thought that was really beautiful. Decode, Too Late is a good follow-up to Silver Lake. Also saw a great PowerPoint demo on nutrition comes from sunlight more than food. Oh, that's interesting. I've not heard of Too Late. I'll check it out. And I've not heard that nutrition comes from sunlight, but that's interesting. I don't know. I don't know what that means. What does that mean? That you get more nutrition from sitting in the sun, or that you get your nutrition from the sun in your food? So yeah, yeah. Anybody got anything that they want to discuss today? We don't have any exciting aliens this week. We don't have any like major drama on the world stage right now. I don't know who John Hawkes is. I don't meditate, but I get very stoned and zone out into some idea or thought. Does that count? Steinwins? Probably not, no. I mean, in minor ways, I would imagine. The 88 Lionsgate? What are you referring to, Trixie? I know the Lionsgate's coming up, that's for sure. It's in 2 days. I have been thinking about that. Like last year, Olivia Newton-John died on the 88 gate. So maybe there'll be something else that happens this year. I don't know. It'll be interesting. I noticed Barbie on Twitch, so I watched it, but I'm not sure what to think. To me, it seemed like an advert for a Barbie rebrand. Seems sad that Barbie doesn't love Ken. Yeah, you watched the whole thing on Twitch? It is sad to me that she doesn't love Ken, but I understand why they made it that way. I spent 2 days rewatching and breaking down Barbie bit by bit. There's so much in it. I think I have 25 pages of notes, which I'm hesitant to make a video because it's so oversaturated, but I'm going to do it anyway. And then I have then I have Oppenheimer to look at, and I've made some really interesting connections with Oppenheimer, Barbie, Don't Worry, Darling, individually and combined. And the insight that I gained from that blew my mind. And that came from doing automatic writing, basically just talking out my thoughts, asking questions and answering them. So that was interesting. But there's a lot in Barbie. There's so much in Barbie. And superficially, there's not as much in Oppenheimer. But Oppenheimer, I suspect, has a lot more under the surface, because there's, the myth of Prometheus, which is in there. There's, and I think too, this is why it's important for me to put these movies together, because they're supposed to be put together. The Barbenheimer thing is not by any mistake. They're supposed to be watched together. They're supposed to be put together. That's why they were made and released together. And the connection to Don't Worry, Darling is not by mistake either. And both movies are connected to Don't Worry, Darling, which is all I'm going to say about that. But it is some next level stuff that I saw with these films. So just trying to process it and do it justice. But yeah, it's going to take some time. That it is coming up. I'm watching around me. Oh, just the 88 gate's coming up. Yeah, it's coming up. So I agree. We should be paying attention to whatever happens around us. See if there's anything coming up. I haven't watched Oppenheimer yet. My mom went and left halfway through. Well, that's interesting. I don't know why she left. Yeah. There's the difficulty is with these films, there's so much to say that I could talk about them a lot, and I want to address the social commentary, because it's important, it's relevant as to the impact that these films have, and some of the issues that have been brought up as a result of these films, that's relevant as well. And then the actual decode itself is relevant. And then the combining of the 3 films and the 2 films. So it's a very involved situation. Joe Mama saw Barbie a week or so ago, going to Oppenheimer today. Oh, cool. Okay. I'm not going to lie. I'm waiting for your decode of Barbie before watching it. Oh, you are? Why is that? Okay. See, I didn't know. I'm just like, we have a discussion in Discord who on Barbenheimer, and the first week it was busy, and now there's nothing in there. Nobody's talking about any of it, and I just wonder, there's so many reviews and there's so many videos, there's so many opinions, and which is important and relevant. And I just sort of felt like, oh, I'm saturated by Barbie. I'm tired of hearing about Barbie. But also, on top of that, I had just spent 2 days breaking it down and writing about it. I had had enough. And honestly, Barbie is a much better movie than people give it credit for. Like I said, there's so much in it. And it has its flaws, much like Don't Worry, Darling has its flaws on the surface in a storytelling capacity, but underneath it's fucking genius. So it's the underneath part that I care about. So like, all these people with their vast opinions of Barbie and what it means and what it's supposed to say, you're not watching it right. I was concerned that people were tired of hearing about it. However, nobody sees Barbie the way that we see Barbie. And so, like my little Barbenheimer trailer review, it's not doing pretty bad, but it's the only one out there that talks about it in that way. So it deserves to be shown in that way. And putting, I had to take a breather before I started to get on Oppenheimer, because it's a 3-hour movie. And I don't think I'm going to go through it with a fine-tooth comb like I did with Barbie, but Barbie needed it. There's so much in Barbie. And, even things like little subtle lines that I didn't think were going to mean anything ended up meaning something. And, they're trying to do too much. Yes. But there's little plot points that, because they're trying to do too much, the way that the screenwriters approached these issues, they on the surface level can appear like it's a big old mess, but actually it's very well connected, and it's actually quite well put together. It's just they tried to do too much. I would have preferred if they had focused more on Barbie and Ken, but I didn't write the movie. It's not my movie. It's their movie. And so I have to look at it the way they did it. And a lot of people out there are like, it should have been like this, and I don't like that it was like this. And it's like, well, this is the movie that you saw. So you can't change the movie. That's not your job. So I found that annoying. Not because it would go over my head otherwise, because my brain is chaotic. So you're like a teacher. Okay. Well, you can either see it first and then see my review, if you want to call it, or decode, or you can see the decode and then go see the movie, and then you will see it a different way. So either way is fine. And it's kind of interesting because seeing something from different perspectives is quite an experience. Like a lot of people are saying, especially in the Discord, they're saying that they watch film and television with a whole new point of view now, and it's a lot more fun. And I said, well, it's because you are new. You are looking at it with fresh eyes and seeing a lot more in it. But it is a lot more fun. Adam, enjoying Ted Lasso series 2 onwards. Yeah, Ted Lasso is brilliant. If you haven't seen Ted Lasso, it's really, really good. There's a lot of truth moments in it. And it's a really, really good show. Entertaining, funny. The guy who plays Ted, what's his name? Forget his name now. Anyway, he was married to Olivia Wilde. So there's the Don't Worry Darling connection there again, too. So, yeah, I recommend Ted Lasso. I've been watching Once Upon a Time. I mentioned this before, but it's really good. If you don't watch the entire series, at least watch the first season. The first season is a must. There's truth peppered throughout. Like the whole thing is truthful. But I did find some of the plot lines a little bit frustrating, like Peter Pan and Never Never Land, and also the what's her name from Frozen. I started to get annoyed with that plot line. But there's a lot of things, like little subtleties and little comments and little things that happen in there that it's not even a major plot point. It's just a little moment that are huge insights to everything that I've been talking about. So it's a lot of fun too. It's a fun little show. Well, I say little, it's actually a pretty big show. It's such a big show. Yeah, Jason Sudeikis, thank you. I watched, what was that? Somebody suggested in the Discord the trilogy of what's the name of it? Okay, so there's the Shaun of the Dead, Fuzz, was it called? Fuzz, that one about the cops. And then the third one, which is about a pub crawl where they end up fighting robots. And I didn't really enjoy the film that much. Hot Fuzz, yeah. So, yeah, I didn't really enjoy the film that much, but it's like I wanted to watch something kind of different that was lighthearted. And I really liked Shaun of the Dead. I thought that was hilarious. And I didn't really like Hot Fuzz that much. But it's interesting to see that there's a trilogy there and there's truth in it. They kept saying how the robots mean slaves. So it actually does mean slaves. So that's kind of interesting how we're focused on all of these robots coming into being, and do they actually mean robots or do they actually mean slaves? And when you think about Westworld and they had all these robots and it's actually the story for the Anunnaki, and the Anunnaki created man as a slave, it's kind of makes sense now why they use robots. So excuse me. So yeah, the other thing about this film was they had the 3 pubs at the end of the pub crawl. I think there were like 12 pubs, and the 3 at the end. One was the King's Head. The other was the Hole in the Wall, and the final one was World's End. Oh, that's what it was called. It's called World's End. And yeah, they call it the Cornetto trilogy. So there's a lot of symbolism in the Cornetto. And so yeah, like the 3 pubs at the end, King's Head, Hole in the Wall, and World's End. So that intrigued me enough to want to watch it. And I thought it was, nice light entertainment. Not really my thing. I was just kind of frustrated with the simplicity of the story. But waiting for Winnie the Pooh to make an appearance next. Yeah, that'd be great. And Once Upon a Time. No luck catching them swans then? Swans? What do you mean? Steinwinds, on Twitch they have some categories where you can find movies, artifacts, always on movie night. Oh, okay, cool. Nat, your man, I watched Shaun of the Dead last week, and I was like decoding it thinking, wow, I can decode. Oh my God, the cornetto thing on Discord, I kept seeing cornettos all of a sudden everywhere. That's funny. Well, you're in England, aren't you? Like, cornetto's a big thing over there. It's not here. I mean, we have them, but they're not as popular as they are there. And, English ice cream is not the greatest. I don't like it, but cornetto's pretty good. So, yeah. They created a series called Spaced. First, would recommend. Although the same team created Spaced. I have a feeling I saw an episode of that. Did that come out some time ago, like a long time ago? Was it like a play on something else? Spaced is awesome. I feel like that was like a parody on something. Is that what it was? Oh. No, it's not the same thing. It's totally different. Okay. It's a line from Hot Fuzz. Yeah. So Spaced is a kind of truth bomb, is it? Tells you the truth in a sort of weird way. Did that come out in the 90s? It looked like it was in the 90s. You can see the first episode on YouTube. Long time. Okay. Did you see Oppenheimer, Adam? You said you were going to go. Did you actually get to see it? Has anybody else seen Oppenheimer? So Joe Mama said he was going today. VR5 in the 90s, one season run worth checking out. They touched on organic computers. Before SOTD? What's that? VR5. One show that I found really, really well done was about computers. I don't know if I can remember the name of it now. It was about the creation of the internet. And yeah, I can't remember the name of it now. It had I've used a clip of it before, but there's a lot of truth in it, but it's a very subtle truth. It's more visual than it is in your face. It's not obvious, and it's not it's not as like symbolic sort of. It's just visual. It's like, the scene in Story of Your Life where the man is walking down the hallway and he comes into the room where his wife is with his baby, and there's a light shining behind his head, like a screen, like a projector, and he's looking at his life as his life passes before his eyes because he's dying. So it's like it's like I said, this very visual, not so much traditional symbolism or anything. And when you see it, it. Like there's a scene too where he goes to a big lake in a reservoir. I guess it's like sort of an abandoned mine or something. There's a reservoir, and he visualizes himself falling into the water, sort of like Narcissus falling in the water, stuff like that. Like it's just it's very poetic and beautiful, and so it's a very unusual approach for a story like that, which is all about the development of the internet. And talking about the development of the internet is kind of synonymous with developing the new world. Satirically peppered truth not yet been swamped. Oh, Mickey Mouse, hello. So nobody else has seen Oppenheimer. Okay. Well, I mean, what is the feeling on Barbie and Oppenheimer right now with everybody? Are you fed up with it? Are you finding it fascinating? Are you intrigued? Have you even seen it? Do you not care? Like, yeah, I kind of like to get a read on what you think of the whole situation. I find it fascinating because it is such a big cultural event, and it's affecting people. It's really affecting people, which is important. It's relevant to the awakening and everything. I've not learned anything new, but I'm hoping others have been awoken. Yeah, I've noticed, I think I mentioned this, I don't know, but a few people have said that they have questioned their lives. They've come out questioning their lives, sort of having their own existential crisis, I guess. Some girls came out crying, and I noticed, the tremendous backlash and anger and hostility and frustration and rage that's come out of this film. And yeah, it's fascinating to me. Don't Worry, Darling is hard to beat. Yeah, I agree, Adam. It is hard to beat. And but if you can, I encourage you to look at it from the perspective that these three films are intertwined and see what you see. I've heard from others that when they watched, they were very affected and said it wasn't a kid's film. No, it's not a kid's film. Anybody who thinks it's a kid's film isn't paying attention. But yeah, it's not a kid's film. And well, kind of. They did include the beach off thing, and yeah, the fact that it is Barbie, it does appeal to kids, but I agree with you. If you're going to use something like Barbie to tell this kind of a story in the way that they told it, it's a bit of a manipulation. So yeah, I agree with that. It's also said PG-13, but I can imagine a lot of parents being pissed off coming out of that, taking their kids to that. But some of the Twitch channels that show movies have Discord, so you request movies. Maybe I should request Don't Worry, Darling. Sure, if you haven't seen it, you absolutely should see it. Did I hear you say people were crying leaving the cinema after watching Oppenheimer? No, after watching Barbie. They were crying after watching Barbie. They said that they were affected by it, and they came out crying, like sobbing. Yeah. The trailer didn't really let on, and I feel like they red-pilled the youth. Well, let's hope they did. But I don't think there was really anything super awful about it. Like a lot of people are saying it's woke. I don't know that I see it. I don't really see it as woke. But the I don't know. I think the definition of woke has kind of changed or something. I don't know. But I think a lot of people have a hard time with the message, perhaps. But I don't think that there's anything really particularly awful about it. I mean, it does talk about death, and that was in the trailer too. So if you're not like, I don't know. I agree. It was a bit off target. I'll watch both when available. What I've read has definitely hit the masculine in a way of MGTOW and not actually question why it was such a trigger. Like they all had solidarity moment, like all the Kens in the movie. Good point. Nobody knows. I totally agree. Which is one of the issues I want to talk about in the video that I make, is how triggered the left, well, I guess you call it the right, depends on how you're looking at it, but like the right, the Christians and the conservatives are, and the men, like the people who adhere to the patriarchy or ignore or deny that there is a patriarchy. And granted, it's not as heavy-handed as it was in the past, but we still have a patriarchy. So they were very heavily triggered. And yeah, instead of looking at why, it's all about getting on the defensive and being angry about it. But like, who are you angry about? What, like, who are you targeting your anger to? The movie? They don't care. What good is that going to do? It's a very strange situation. If anything, I find it inappropriate for kids with all the genitals, but other than that, it's a truth bomb wrapped in pink. I agree with you. Yeah. That part of it, it is a bit much. MGTOW is men go their own way, the split from the feminine. MGTOW is probably like the one of the most toxic masculine reactions to toxic feminism. So, yeah, the reaction to the film is heated, which is great. It has to be heated. I think it's awesome. You know, it's funny too, because a lot of, I mean, you mentioned that all the Kens stick together in the film, but all the Barbies stuck together too. And there's a lot of emphasis on how the Kens were all supportive of one another. Well, the Barbies were all supportive of one another as well, and nobody mentioned that. There's a lot of hating on the feminine from the reactions. And I mean, this whole point, you're not supposed to like it. So I don't understand these people. It's like, the whole point is you're not supposed to like it. And yet they're just like, I don't know why they see it that way, but they do. It feels like these films are yellow bricks on the road. Well said. That's really interesting. They are. You know, there's a lot of people who are seeing the symbols, but they're seeing it in a sort of fear-based way. Sometimes the truth hurts. And yeah, I'm not sure what you mean by that, but the truth hurts all the time. But yeah, like, that's why there's this backlash. It's backlash because the feminine is rising, so they don't want to know about it. They feel threatened because this is the status quo here, and they don't realize, you know, I think the worst reaction video I saw was a Christian video, and it was saying that Barbie is feminist, Barbie hates Ken, and a woman's place is in a home, and she should be subservient to her husband. And I was like, are you serious? You still seriously adhere to this bullshit? I mean, it's like, I don't know. I don't know why. And then they go and they, some of these people are saying things like patriarchy is the way it's supposed to be. And some of them are saying we don't have a patriarchy. It's fascinating what they're saying. What I found more annoying is that they saw in the movie that what they saw in the movie they projected out in reality, yet it's not actually the true reality, only what they see in the news and feminist propaganda. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Well, this is it. Like, in the movie, you know, she's showing two extremes on purpose as serving a point. One's matriarchy, one's patriarchy. And they're a little bit parodied. They're a little bit extreme on purpose. And so what they're seeing is, well, we go into the real world, and the real world is run by men. And so then, you know, it is a comedy, but they've made it out that all the men are stupid. Well, let's see. It seemed to me that all the people were stupid, men and women. I don't really recall anyone being all that super intelligent, except maybe Gloria and her kid. That's about it. Everybody else was kind of superficially intelligent because they were supposed to be. That was the character for Barbie, but whatever. The point is, they did make, you know, all the Barbies in Barbie Land were supposed to be intellectual, but in the patriarchy, You know, it was run by Will Ferrell, who was a bumbling fool, and his 12 goons who were not much more intelligent. So, yeah, I guess you could say that. But, you know, the anger of, oh, they made all the men stupid, and yet there's the women who were supposed to be super intelligent were easily manipulated into being controlled under the new patriarchy that was over a love of horses. So yeah, like they took that to mean that this is a clear depiction of reality, but it's not. It's an exaggeration. Clearly, it's not like that here. It's not. It's supposed to be the real world, but it's not. It's not a realistic depiction of the real world. When people finally see it and it's been in their face the whole time, yeah. Well, this is it. Like, I think that's the worst. The worst thing is when you realize that you've been looking at something the whole time and not seeing it. It's like the you know, I was talking about earlier in this video, I was talking about the moon landing being faked. And so many people have seen that thing. And I mean, people don't see it all the time, every day. It's not staring you in the face all the time, but it sort of sits in your consciousness. It's like, oh yeah, we landed on the moon in the 60s. And you've seen some, like the footage, they keep showing you that footage of Armstrong taking the first step. And you don't really see it. You don't really see it. And then when you do see it, you're like, damn, how come I didn't see that before? Oh, speaking of which, so there was a movie, so there was a video of, that was on Joe Rogan, and just a typical example of how these things are control release. So this guy came on Joe Rogan and he was talking about how the atomic bombs were faked. And this was just a short. So the guest that he had was a bumbling fool. And he was talking about how the atomic bombs were faked, and they were showing the footage behind him. And Joe Rogan says, what do you mean they were faked? How did they fake it? He says, well, they just did it. They just did. And then he bumbled through the rest of it, didn't really say anything. And he's like, where's the camera? What happened to the camera? And that was his only proof. So the people who were solidly in support of believing that this actually happened and it was real had still not enough evidence to convince them that it wasn't. Meanwhile, there were people who knew it wasn't real in the comments saying, well, how about this and how about this and how about this? But all the people who are convinced that it's real came back with answers, came back with responses, because they didn't want to believe it. And so when and if they finally realize that it is fake, and then they see it for what it is, you feel like total buffoon. Like that's like the worst feeling. It's like, it's been staring me in the face and I never saw it before. It will pull people to a pillar or embed them further in one. Yeah, for sure. Like the Tesla car flying through space. Exactly. Mickey Mouse. Yeah. I mean, when that thing happened, I can't believe there are people who believe that. That's real. And I don't know. I mean, it's so absurd. And yet there are people who believe it. I don't know what they think about it now. Just look at the sun. In what regards? It's right there in our sky. Yeah. People really believe it's millions of miles away. Yeah, exactly. Well, you can see the sun with clouds in front of it and behind it. You can see the moon with clouds in front of it and behind it. How is that possible if it's millions of miles away? That's okay, Adam. Don't worry about it. Face diapers. Oh, yeah. That, absolutely. TrueLove, good to see you. They probably will never realize the truth about nukes or the flying Tesla or the moon, my own family. I know. It's because they believe everything that comes on television. They believe what they're told. People are still driving around alone in cars, masked. Yeah, they are. I've seen it. Ugh. I know. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that people fall for pretty easily. So, I mean, it's frustrating because I think on one hand it shows how trusting people are, which is a good thing in a way, we're generally trusting, honest, good people. However, you try and point it out to them that they've fallen for a lie and they'll freaking kill you. Did Oppenheimer not allude to nukes being fake? Yes, it did. Which I pointed out, I think it was in the last chat before. The scene where Oppenheimer hears that they split the atom. Oppenheimer tells them that's not possible, and he did the math to prove it. And they said, well, they did. And so Oppenheimer says, well, it's only theory. So theory only takes you so far, which proves that theoretical physics is bullshit. And it proves that they never split the atom, because if you can't prove it with math, then it never happened. And his math doesn't prove anything. His theories don't prove anything. So then it doesn't work. How can you have theoretical physics that doesn't prove anything? And everything that he kept saying, theory only takes you so far. So then what's your freaking theory actually doing? What is theoretical physics actually doing? So yeah, the fact that they essentially proved that it never happened. And then they were at the testing ground. So this is the other thing. Like, they're at the testing ground and they set off the bomb. So here's the other, they set off the bomb, okay? Bomb goes off. I don't know how far away they are. They can't be that far, maybe a mile or two. So but this bomb gets to them. The impact of the bomb, it comes out in this like energy cloud, reaches them, hits them. Their only protection is a piece of glass so that they can look at it without burning their eyes. They have no protection from the radiation. So they're physically in the place where the bomb goes off. They get hit by the radiation and nobody's concerned. Nobody dies, nobody's sick, nothing. And then they obviously have to go clean up the site. Didn't show that. Also, after they take the bomb away, so this is a nuclear warhead that they had to carefully haul up to this tower. And then they immediately, as soon as they lifted it, they put all this cushioning underneath, as if that's going to stop. If the bomb drops on the ground, it's going to hit something. It doesn't matter what it is. It's going to blow up. So they put all this padding underneath, and then they later dropped the bomb, right? That's why they hoisted it up. They didn't, like fix explosives to it. The detonation is the drop. So we're supposed to believe that, dropping the bomb, it's gonna blow it up. And then after all of this, they had the successful thing. They take the bomb away in a crate on the back of a truck, and it's bumping like this. Oh my God. And that's not going to worry you that it's going to get blown up. It's going to get set off. Oh dear. Mathematics. Yeah, exactly. Oh my God. Yeah, there's so many little moments that just show how absurd it is. And that in itself is, worth covering, I think. It's like, maybe I'll do a video on that, show how Oppenheimer basically points out all the flaws and how this never happened. The hypocrisy, for sure. Yeah. I don't know why, any of these other reviewers have ever said anything. They haven't said anything about all the logic gaps in that movie. I doubt I'll see it because of nukes, but I never thought I'd see Barbie, but I'm intrigued. Yeah, it's worth seeing. If I was to recommend a movie out of the two, I'd say see Barbie. Open Home, yeah. Please do. Okay. It's 3 hours long. It is. I know. And it is long. It is. There was a point where my legs were hurting because we'd been in there for close to 4 hours by the time it was over. And it started to lag a little for me. I mean, it is kind of like there's a lot going on. It keeps you engaged, but I was like, okay, are we gonna get to a point here? Like, what exactly are we trying to say about this thing? And I like Christopher Nolan. I like his films. I kind of felt like there was a little self-indulgence in this one for 3-hour film. But I did catch something that I didn't catch the first time. So when I go back and review it and break it all down, I know I'll see some things in there that I didn't see the first time. And it's only when I go through with a fine-tooth comb that I really pull out all the hidden gems in there. So, I mean, it's a good film. Don't get me wrong, but it's a story. It's not history. And some people will think that it is. It's like people hold on to the atomic bomb the same way they hold on to the moon landing. It's the same type of thing. It's got America tied to it, so there's this sense of nationalism for Americans because this is what won the war. So it's the epitome of what makes America great. And there's that sort of military might that America holds on to, is proud of. So for Americans to lose that and to realize it's all fake, it is hard. It's a hard one to take, just as hard as the moon. Like that was another one that was tied to America's identity. It's like, oh, we beat the Russians. So yeah. And then there was also the other aspect that was in Oppenheimer, which was the communist aspect, which is symbolic. So yeah, actually now just talking about it, I'm kind of excited to go back and look at the film and do the decode, but it's going to take a while because it's 3 hours long. It's probably going to take me a week. It's going to take me a week to go through that film. And then I have to write what I'm going to say, and then I have to make the videos. It's going to take me at least 2 weeks to do that. That's a lot of work. Plus the Barbie video. And then, so that's going to take at least a few days. And then I need to tie the 3 together. So it's going to take a long time. Well, I'm glad you're excited to see the film because, you know, from my perspective about both films, it isn't so much about the films themselves. It's what they represent, and it's what the hidden message is inside. You know, so from what I hear in the truth community, a lot of people are kind of adamantly opposed to either one, and especially Barbie, but they don't know what the message is. They don't understand it properly. So they think that it's all satanic stuff. So, yeah, I can understand where they're coming from. You know, if you're in the fear camp or you're in the, the Christian side, especially Christians are attacking it because of the Gnostic stuff that's in it. But yeah, a friend of mine made a point about the whole Gnostic and Christian thing. Is like, why are they so bent out of shape about it? The answer is still Christ in the Gnostic side. So I don't know why they hate it so much. It's like, it's very strange, but they see it as the reason, I guess, they don't like it is because it makes the God of this world evil. But yeah, so even then, it's about like the serpent tempting them in the Garden of Eden, and that's evil. So just even representing that, it's apparently evil to them, which is weird. Would know the truth that these weapons weren't real and the whole industry will collapse. Yeah. Well, exactly. I mean, so, I was thinking about this the other day. Here, we have an atomic power plant, a nuclear power plant. We have 2 of them, one in Pickering and one in Arlington. And we also have hydro, which is in Niagara Falls. And I heard recently somewhere, I forget now where, that the hydro plant in Niagara Falls generates enough electricity to power, I think it was all of Ontario. I forget now, but it was a vast area, basically covered all of our needs. Yet we still have 2 power plants, nuclear power plants. I'm beginning to wonder what they do there, because my electricity comes from hydro, because the bill says Ontario Hydro. So I don't know of anybody who gets their electricity from the nuclear power plants. So I don't know, maybe I'm ignorant. Maybe I don't know how it works. Maybe it's all called hydro. But wouldn't it be called Pickering Nuclear or Darlington Nuclear, not Ontario Hydro? I don't know. Maybe I'm just ignorant, but it did make me think, do we need these plants? What do they actually do there? Are they actually doing anything? And, we're also faced with the whole, the idea of, well, aren't you afraid that those plants are going to get, they're going to blow up? Kind of like Chernobyl. I was afraid of it at one point when I was a child. And I think that's why they're there. I think they're there to stir up fear. And then after a while, I was like, well, nothing's happened. They keep telling us that they could blow up or there could be a leak or whatever. Nothing's happened the whole time I've been here. And I don't foresee anything happening. So no, I'm not afraid. Those plants have been there for probably since like the 80s, I think. The best thing about Barbie is there's no villain. I saw a video today of purple pink fumes coming from a power plant today. Apparently it's been happening for 2 days straight. Sounds like Barbie fumes, purple pink. Well, it's interesting that you say there's no villain because I saw a video that said Barbie is the villain. Which, fine, you can make an argument for that. But I didn't really see Barbie as a villain. But if you have the perspective that, well, Ken brought equality to Barbie Land, which I do not agree with. He brainwashed the Barbies into being subservient to them. And these people on the patriarchy side are saying things like, Ken brought equality and all the Barbies were happy. And so Barbie was the evil one because she came in and put it back to the way it was. It's like, well, how is it good if all the Barbies are brainwashed and not authentically your partner because they want to be? And at the very end, which these people neglect to notice, at the very end of the film, one of the Kens at least said that he doesn't care about being Ken anymore. He just wants to be with his girlfriend. And so she came over to him and they had a hug. So like that to me is more authentic and genuine, that he's just like, I don't want to fight anymore. I just want to be with my girlfriend and I want to, be together. And she felt the same way. So I thought that was a very touching moment that a lot of people missed. Plants have the control room like NASA. Yeah. Steven. She became conscious. That's only evil to NPCs. I agree with you, Adam, for sure. Yeah. The plants near me clearly make clouds. And there's even a video of Jeremy Clarkson in a doc showing you how the plants make rain clouds. Oh, yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, I remember seeing that. And then they had they make the clouds and then they shoot some sort of pellet in it or something that starts the rain. I remember seeing that. So yeah, maybe that's what they do. I do notice when I was paying attention, I guess 2017, 2018, I was paying more attention to the sky and the clouds and stuff, that the clouds come from a set direction all the time. Certain types of clouds come from the same direction. And then it's sort of like the natural looking fluffy clouds seem to come from another direction. So that's kind of odd. But yeah, I haven't paid any attention to the sky in the last few years because I just don't care. What am I going to do about it? It's not, I mean, it's entertaining and everything, but can't really do anything about the sky. So I feel like there was something else I saw that was worth talking about, but I can't remember now what it was. Um, couldn't have been all that important. Anyone else have anything else they would like to talk about? Any subjects you'd like to talk about? It's been a very quiet week. It's a long weekend this weekend here in Canada, so there's not many people around. Celibacy. Oh my goodness. Pick a touchy subject. Yeah, we had a Discord discussion about celibacy, which was interesting. So let's get your opinions on it. Let's talk about it. Do you think celibacy is... Yeah, that's cool. Do you think celibacy is necessary, let's say necessary, in your ascension process? Do you think that it is beneficial, or do you think it doesn't matter? Or is it certain kinds of sex? Is it the approach to the way that you go about it? Is that more important? So of the four, what do you think? Stephen Snowman, I have shot time lapse where one layer of clouds are going in a different direction than another layer of a phoenix. Oh, for sure, yeah. I've seen that too, because there's planes. It's what airplanes fly on. They fly on airplanes, literally. And so there's levels of sky, and I think it's due to like air density. So the certain clouds will be on certain levels, which is why, you look at a cloud from a distance, it has a flat bottom a lot of times, right? The bottom is flat, it's all puffy on the top. And then on another level, you have a different plane, so you have a different layer of clouds, and so they can move in different directions. That's why if you are flying a plane, so you catch one plane, if it's moving this way, you're going to have friction. So if this plane is going the other way, you want to get on that plane. So that's why certain planes have to get it to a certain height, certain altitude, and then they catch what they call what's it called? The airstream, so they can get boost to travel faster without exerting any more power. So yeah, there's levels. Mickey Mouse, I have been for 3 years. Wow. So how has that affected you in your ascension experience? Adam, I do think it's the biggest attachment to the physical. Adam, I'd like to hear more. Why do you think that it's the biggest attachment? In what way? Yeah, Jetstream. Yeah, thank you. How has it affected you positively, negatively in your ascension process? I mean, this subject is kind of touchy, because a lot of people... So put it this way, like we were talking about the attachment to the moon landing, or atomic bomb, and how important that is for people, especially Americans, because it's tied to their identity, a sense of nationalism and pride. So that's tied to ego, which is tied to yourself, and that makes it impossible, like very hard for you to let go. So obviously it's easier for people who are not Americans to let it go, because it's not tied to their nationality or their sense of identity. And but for Americans, it's harder. So I do know a lot of Americans who have let it go, but it is harder, especially if you're military or whatever. So for a lot of people, especially in culture, modern culture, the way sex is treated, even in teenage years, women women who sleep around are labeled sluts. Excuse me. And men, if you haven't had sex by a certain age as a teenager, then you are ostracized, you're shamed, and it's like the goal is to lose it as quickly as possible, which is so not the point. And no matter what a woman does, whenever she does lose it, depending on who it's with, she could be shamed for it anyway. So, like, who are these boys having sex with that, they have to have sex with someone? So how can they have this double standard where it's okay for the guy but not okay for the girl? So who are they having sex with? And then they end up creating the demonized woman by acting out what they feel is what they're supposed to do so that they don't get shamed. And so they create the whore and then they label her a whore. I mean, it's so hypocritical, and they don't even realize it. They don't realize that they're creating the whore. She's not a whore. She's not inherently a whore. She's just a woman. She's a woman who wanted to connect with a guy, and then you use and abuse her, throw her away, and treat her like a whore, and you make her a whore. So it's like, that really bothers me. I study more, I dream more productive. Well, that's good. Nat, I reckon isolation is beneficial to ascension because people feel entitled to your time, and half of the time they need something fixing in them and I can't help them. Yeah. I appreciate the isolation. I've mentioned this before, but it can get hard on you. It can be difficult if you're too isolated. So yeah, it can be tricky. It keeps literally attracting you to a physical form. It keeps you in your carnal desires, which is physical. It's the last ring to conquer on Dante's Tower before Paradiso, but I battle with it greatly. Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that another aspect that we've been conditioned in society is that the way that we treat it, the way we treat sex is not, it's more like a physical activity. It's not about connecting. It's not about making love. It's not about bonding with the other person or making a deeper connection, a deeper relationship with the other person. And everything is more about the physical act. It's more about getting your rocks off. It's more about physical release. It's more about, an inability to control your urges, because you see somebody who's really physically appealing and you just want to be with that person. It's like you want to own that person, because in having that person in that way, it's like you have sort of taken a piece of them in a way. It's like, this is why, people will say, well, I was with that person, I was with that person, I was that person, because it's an attachment. It's an ego attachment, first of all, because it's like a notch on your belt, or it's a number of people that you've conquered, or you can say that you were with a specific person because of how they look, that it's another ego build. So and And sometimes it doesn't even matter what they look like because you just want to have the numbers. So you can say that you've had sex with so many people. So it's actually been polarized the opposite way. Sex is supposed to be about connecting and getting at a deeper level, but then it's been polarized the opposite way, where it's about repelling and disconnecting, so that it's like a one night stand thing, and you feel negative or dirty after because you haven't connected and you don't even know the person. And we're talking about the superficial physical side of it. I mean, obviously, if you're in a relationship, that's a different way of treating it, but it's still kind of physically based. In a relationship, it's more about, well, we haven't had sex in so long, we should have sex. What's your sex life like? And there's a lot of emphasis on maintaining a sex life, but it isn't about connecting. It's still about the sex life. Hard to love the opposite sex and understand them if you do not love and understand yourself. That's true. This is another issue that I have, is like, well, how do you find a partner who you are in love with and love, and have that kind of spiritual love, true love, and enrich that connection through sex, when we live in a world that is full of the opposite of that, the lack of that. There's so many people are together, but they're not in love. They're out together out of convenience. They're together out of obligation. They're together for the sake of the children. They're together because they can't find anybody better, or they're afraid to leave, or there's very few people who are together because they're genuinely in love and love that person, and it's growing daily. Very few. So yeah, it's such a nuanced and layered subject. I think in a way I can play a part as a distraction with having the physical running after it, yet who's to say true love doesn't affect you when you're done in a loving way? I think in a way it can play a part as a distraction with having the physical and running after it, yet who's to say true love doesn't affect you when done in a loving way? Yeah, that makes sense for sure. Yeah, if it becomes a mental preoccupation or an addiction, and the sort of base consciousness approach to life, where you are all about your physical desires and satisfying them, but not finding satisfaction in them, which ultimately leads to a downside, a fall. So it's like you're trying to find God in the physical, and so you're seeking it in things in the physical, like sex, alcohol, drugs, shopping, going out, entertainment, escapism, religion. All of these things are externally focused, and so if you're constantly trying to fill that void by going outside of yourself, they're all basically the same thing. And the mental preoccupation that can come from that kind of focus and addiction doesn't leave any room in here for anything else. And it clutters up your mind because you are now focused on that instead of better things, higher things. It's literally everywhere now too. Even social media is like a massive push, triggering sexual thoughts and desires. Porn wouldn't be free in a capitalist system unless there was a reason, for sure. I remember being ostracized because I hadn't started my period in first year of high school. Yeah, that happens too. And there's a lot of talk too when you're younger. If you don't know anything about, like, if you're very innocent and naive, you can get shamed for that too. And if you have lack of experience, you get shamed for that. So there's a lot of emphasis on pushing people when they're young into having physical relationships. I remember, where am I here? Yeah, like the everywhere and the you know, like the whole let's call it corn. The corn industry is very geared towards getting people addicted, but also luring them into lower behaviors because of the sort of just like alcohol or, you know, anything you use to get any kind of physical pleasure from, it ends up requiring that you take more and more and more to get that same high. And so you kind of get a numbness and a what's the word? You become immune, or it just doesn't do it for you anymore. So you have to keep reaching for the next thing, and then the curiosity as well will kick in, and so it gets you addicted. And I remember, okay, so here's an interesting side story. So I worked background on this show that was when I think I was still non-union at the time. And my agent did not tell me what kind of show it was, but it was one of those blue movies where it's, you know, kind of hinted at, but they don't actually do anything. So I didn't know that it was that. When we got there, we were told that's what it was, and we were told that we could leave if we wanted to. But we were all like, well, we need the money. And, you know, how bad is it? Tell us. Like, is it, you know, what kind of stuff is going on in this show? And so it wasn't that bad. So we're like, okay, fine, we'll stay. And so I met the actress who was the lead, and she was a very nice person, but broken. And I really felt for her. Like, I felt like she was trying to connect. But she was very open about her past. And she used to be in corn, and she was trying to get out of it. And, or was she, no, was she, maybe she was a stripper. Anyway, something like that. And so she was telling me her struggles with how she was treated and how she's, you know, viewed and everything. And so it was very hard to listen to because, you know, I felt for her. But from what I've heard with these sorts of careers, I guess, it's very hard to get out of, because there's a reason you get into them in the first place. And when you get into those sorts of things and the money's really good, then you don't really see a way out of it. So I forget what my point was. I forget why I brought this up, but anyway, wouldn't be free if there wasn't a reason. I forget. Sorry, I forget why I brought this up. Somebody remember? I don't know, but it was something to do with what she said to me about her past and why she does what she does. And you know, how it's breaking people, you know. Obviously, most of the people that I've talked to who are in those sorts of jobs they were abused when they were younger, so that's how they sort of view themselves. So it's kind of tragic. It's hard to hear their stories. Intimacy is important, and I think, and it manifests in men, especially through seeking sex, but truly, I think we need to be intimate and have limited ways to obtain that. Yeah. Well, here's the other thing too, is marriage has become more and more of a business arrangement, Mickey Mouse. Yeah, I agree. Well, so intimacy, okay. I think that there's a limitation on how we have been raised and taught to relate to one another. I mean, obviously, this goes back to all the focuses on sex when we're a teenager. It isn't on developing relationships. It isn't on how to connect with one another. We're not taught how to, I mean, they separate the boys and the girls when we're younger. You go to a school dance and the boys are on one side, girls on the other. And so there's this sort of division already created. And we already know why. But anyway, there's a division that's created. So there's a lack of connection built into society. And then they don't hit us with, well, you're going to want to connect with a boy or a girl because you're going to want, or, you know, whatever nowadays, because you're going to want to have a partner in life. And so you have to learn to relate to each other. And so we're going to have an education class on how to have a healthy, mutually beneficial and respectful relationship and marriage, and how to have a marriage, how to enter into a marriage, how to find a partner. They don't talk about any of that. No, what do they talk about? They talk about sex. We have sex ed. And they don't talk about, they don't really talk about self-respect. They talk about don't do it, abstain. And if you're going to, here's what it looks like. Here's how it works. Here's how babies are made. And here's a condom. I mean, it's the most antiseptic, awful presentation. Oh, and then they tell you about all the horrors and the STDs and stuff. So, by the way, you could die. I mean, they hit you with the whammy on one side and the whammy on the other. But nowhere in our upbringing are we taught how to relate to one another, how to have a connection with the opposite sex, or your partner. And we're not told how to build a healthy relationship. If anything, they teach us how not to. It's women are bad and they're all either whores or prudes, and men are bad, they're all after sex. So it's like, wow, how are we supposed to have any sort of connection if that's the way that they approach it? So I think if we're looking to look at the world in a completely different way, and we want to have completely different kind of relationships, deeper, more meaningful relationships, we're going to have to look at, first of all, taking sex out of the equation and focusing on creating a deeper, richer bond with each other, emotionally, intellectually, and then physically. And that should be the last thing. It should be up here. It should be here. You know, you should be trying to make a mind-heart connection. So, yeah, like, it's all backwards. It's all backwards. Humiliation rituals. Yeah. I know I was only thinking the other day, if I was taught in school the subject of how not to let other people gaslight your experience, that would save me a lot of trauma. If I ever have children, I would homeschool them. Yeah, you know, They should teach us about different types of people, different types of personalities. They should teach us how to get along. They should teach us how to protect ourselves, how to stand up for ourselves. They don't teach us any of that. Parents don't know. Parents don't know. They went through the same education system as we did. How are we supposed to expect our parents to know any better than the garbage we're taught in school? Aside from the fact that they've potentially been through some kind of relationship in order to bring you into the world, doesn't mean it was a good one. And that's the problem. You know, if we're looking to our parents as guideposts or a guiding light into telling us what is a model relationship when they haven't had one themselves, you know, how many couples get married because the woman got pregnant? How many couples get into a relationship for all sorts of other reasons other than genuine love for each other? I mean, it's not exactly the best example. And if we're looking back on how things change in society over decades, you look back and say the way that the dynamic was in the 70s is very different from the way it is now. So dating advice from the 70s would not really apply now. And I mean, yeah, there's certain things that apply at the root in how to relate to each other. But you know, most people tend to meet each other online these days. So that's a completely different experience from the 70s. So you can't really compare. And the way that people are, you know, it's totally different experience. So, so yeah, it's like, say you had parents who grew up in the 90s, and then they're trying to tell you in, like, say 2015 how to date. They might know some things, but maybe they only ever had one relationship. Maybe they don't have anything to compare it to. Maybe they don't know what a healthy relationship is. Or maybe somebody's had a lot of experience and their relationship advice is terrible. So, or maybe they've had a lot of experience and their relationship advice is really good. It's, you know, there's not really any measure, is there? So the frustrating thing is that most people don't tell you anything, and we kind of just have to fumble through life figuring it out for ourselves, which is kind of stupid. There should be some sort of framework in place where people are more supportive of each other. You know, like if you look back and let's say tribal communities, or where people are more family based in sort of the old fashioned approach, where, you know, the women would get together and prepare the woman for marriage and tell her what it's all about. And the men would get together and I don't know what they would do. But they would, usually back then, the man was older, had more life experience, but at least there was some sort of family community that was supportive of them making a proper go of it and setting up their house together. You know, they would help them set up their house so that they were comfortable and got off on the right foot, which is what, you know, registering at the store was supposed to be about. But now it's all about money. I mean, the number of weddings I've been to, or at least been witness to, where the bride and groom are all about grabbing as much cash as they can. They have a Jack and Jill to raise money for their wedding. Then they ask for donations at the wedding. And instead of a gift, give us money. And then they have a baby shower, they have a bachelorette and a bachelor party, and it's all about the money. And it's like, well, we registered here, so give us a gift. It's like constant money grabbing. TikTok generation has no attention span for intelligent, articulate, compassionate feeling, sharing. Yeah, well, there are some people who do thought sharing or font or time. They, whatever they want right then and there. Yeah, they very, which is by design, of course. You've got the online daters who go by a split-second decision of yes or no, left or right. I don't like this guy. I don't like this girl. Whatever. Oh, she's hot. He's hot. Whatever. Which has put the focus all on appearance. And there's more to appearance than just a photograph. There's how someone carries themselves. There's how someone presents in public, talks to you, moves. There's all sorts of subtleties and things that you don't see in just a photograph that you get in person, and how they relate to other people. There's all sorts of sort of indicators that you can get as to what kind of person they are just from those subtleties. And you may not even be conscious of them. You might just pick it up subconsciously as like, this is the kind of person that I'm attracted to, and you don't even realize why. It's just some sort of subliminal thing that you pick up on. So yeah, like there's a lot of people who are very superficially focused, and it's very hard not to be with internet dating and apps and TikTok culture and all, like, it is very frustrating. There's just so much stimulation. There's so much hyper focus on superficial things and getting to the point. It's not very meaningful or deep, is it? I think I'm going to shave my head as a way to rid my attachment to my looks and insecurities. I've been thinking about it for a while, but worried I wouldn't be attractive, but I shouldn't care. I want to focus on my character and the kind of person I am, not what I look like. Well, that's interesting. That's an interesting point. Here's what I've thought about that, because the last little while, I've kind of been thinking about that sort of thing. Not to that extreme, but I've been thinking about it. And it kind of goes back to my story about my car. Do you remember my story about my car, where I thought I wanted an old beater and then I realized I didn't? Well, there's a lot of spiritual gurus who will say that we shouldn't be attached to how we look and all this sort of stuff. And yet there's also another perspective where, if you look at it from the perspective of as within, so without, your external is a reflection of how you feel internally. And so if you feel that you don't like yourself, then maybe your looks will fade, or you won't put as much effort in, or you'll start to stop exercising or eat bad foods, or there's things that you would normally do when you look after yourself that you start to let go of and stop looking after yourself, which can lead to a very slippery slope into looking not unhealthy, out of shape, you could get to dangerous health conditions as a result. So there's a lot of things that can happen, and it isn't about the superficial aspect of I am my identity. I am how I look. Therefore, I need to take care of it. Otherwise, I don't exist. It's more about maintaining yourself because you respect yourself and you want to take care of your body because it's a reflection of who you are within. So, yes, you have to take care of your temple. So, I mean, you could go to the other extreme of I don't care how I look, so I'm going to eat junk food all the time. I'm going to indulge in whatever I feel like. I'm going to, let myself go, and you're not going to feel good about yourself. So, personally, I don't recommend it. And I think like the little experiment that I've gone through where with COVID and everything, and how I left my gym, and I've been exercising but not the same way that I used to, and I gained some weight and I don't like it. I don't think that I'm hideous or anything, but I also don't like it. I don't feel comfortable. It's not what I'm accustomed to. So it's not like, it's not like it's about personal identity or anything. It's about, this doesn't feel comfortable to me, and I don't feel as good in some ways. So I want to get back to what feels right for me. And I experimented with it and don't really like it. So I agree. I exercise and eat right and care about being healthy. For me, my hair is thinning and it's an insecurity, and I want to free myself from that. I take care of my health. Yeah. Well, it's just the way your original comment sounded a bit more like I'm going to shave my head because I don't care what I look like. Whereas this is the opposite. You're kind of saying now that you want to shave your head because you find it's an insecurity. And so that's kind of the opposite of what I originally took it as. So, I mean, it'll grow back, right? If that's what you are concerned about. But yeah, I couldn't do a hair bun properly, and I literally got so annoyed trying to fit in. I shaved my head. Wow. Yeah. So anyway, that's my perspective on it. But, if it's going to make you feel better, that's different. If it's about sort of, oh, I don't give a shit, I'm just going to look any old crazy wackadoo way, that's kind of different. Maybe I'll walk around looking like weird Barbie and start drawing like crayons on my face and shave my head and spike it up and stuff. That's a possibility as well. But, maybe it is an insecurity to have to look a certain way, but it just doesn't feel good to me to not, and it doesn't feel like me. And, yeah, it's tricky. Adam, look at Jason Statham. He's attractive and he's shaved. I was talking about my attachment to my insecurities and looks. I can't control my hair. I can't take control over it, though. If I'm unattractive without hair, then I shouldn't matter because of who I am. Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, there's plenty of guys who shave their heads who are attractive. It's just, for men, a lot. It's an insecurity for men, period. So, yeah, if that's going to make you feel better, then, by all means. But like I said, if you don't like it, you can grow it back out, or you could buzz it. You don't have to shave it all off. Just trim it shorter. Exactly. Yeah. Statham is the goal. There you go. So you can do it in stages too. Just keep going shorter, see what you like. You don't have to do it drastic or anything. It's not, there's no rules, right? There's no rules in it. So but yeah, like the whole I've been questioning a lot about, we were talking about sex, and we were talking about identity and appearances, and a lot of like the physical stuff. And I've been thinking about that quite a bit. Like, there's things that I want that, I still go back and forth between the physical life and the metaphysical life, and thinking like, that I want certain things from this physical life, and I have to keep checking myself. I have to keep saying, well, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But it's not easy. And getting to the point where, yes, I feel like we're here in the physical for a reason. Doesn't mean that we should be homeless or destitute, or cause additional suffering to ourselves by living in an uncomfortable situation. And again, if it's as within, so without, then why shouldn't you live in abundance? Why shouldn't you live comfortably and enjoy the physical to a certain point? Right? It isn't like when you look at it from the physical perspective, it isn't like, well, I have to achieve these things. I have to own these things. It's more along the lines of, it would be nice if I had this, and it'd be okay if I didn't. Or, you know what, I'd like to go for a swim, and somebody invites you to go for a swim, so you go for a swim. Or it would be nice if I had a partner, and then the partner comes along and you enjoy each other's company, and then it's like, okay, great, let's have a nice time. I'd like to see you again. And there's a detachment in all of it, as opposed to this sort of hyper attachment of, I have to have these things, or I'm a loser, or I didn't succeed in life, or I will be less than, or I will not be successful, or whatever that means. So there's so much of that ingrained in us. It's so hard to shake. It's so hard to let go of. And even though I did a lot of work in letting go of a lot of those things, it's mentally sometimes still pops up. Sometimes certain little triggers pop up where it's like, say I'm watching something, and they have, your picket fence life, and so I was watching like this soap opera, Sweet Magnolias, which is just a little sweet Christian type of soap opera, like a family drama. And, they have your stereotypical cookie cutter family with a picket fence, and the kids are going to high school and they're getting into relationships, and the parents are having businesses and careers and romances and travel and buying stuff, and like all the little physical oriented stuff we're supposed to do. And there's moments where I'm watching this and I'm thinking, I don't have that. I'll never have that. I don't have that. I never have that. I was supposed to have that. It shows up every now and then. And I check myself and I'm like, why is this show bringing this up? Like, it doesn't even matter. I don't want that. But it kind of reminds me of my childhood or my like teenage years or something. And, it's just all of this stuff is bouncing around in there. I shaved my head, used to have long, beautiful red hair. Now it's on my face. Like a wizard. It's cute. Yeah. Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, what do you think? Do you still hold on to the physical and still have things pop up that you want in your life, and you're just like, well, should I even want those things? And I think, like I said, like if it's detachment, then why shouldn't you have those things? But like if you're chasing those things, and again, it's like we're talking about with the sex and chasing the sex and making it about your identity, then it starts to become an attachment to the physical, which holds you here. It's because it's unfinished business, right? So let's say if you have a career that you really, really want, and you're just getting it going, and it just sort of eludes you, and you're just like, well, I really wanted to be a musician. And so you maybe quit your job and go back and try and be a musician, and it doesn't work out. And then you're like, okay, well, I better go back and get another job. And then it still nags at you. So you play in a band on the weekends or something, but it's just not enough. So you have this sort of nagging attachment to shoulda, coulda, woulda. And these sorts of things are attachments that will keep you coming back here, which is fine if you want to come back here. Doesn't matter, like a lot of, like all of us are like, I don't want to ever come back here. But if it's okay if you do, it's fine if you do. And, it's, that's another aspect that's kind of on my mind is all of these things, because it's connected to the physical things that we want. And are we able to, and should we be able to enjoy these physical things? And the argument is that God created them all, so why not? And I think it's all in the manner in which you enjoy these things. Much like how we're talking about sex, it's the same for anything else in this world. I think like every time I go on Facebook that I am alone because I should have children and a partner, or just children, but I don't even want kids because I don't want to put them through this scary world. Yeah. It's interesting because, nobody knows I felt the same way. Yeah, so you can look at this world in a multitude of ways. You can look at it, from the blissful perspective that the physical is the way that it is, and that's how it should be. And then it's not scary or anything, but, certain bad things happen. But then when you realize that all the fear-based stuff is an illusion and there's this truth that lies underneath, I see this as quite beautiful, and the whole story is quite perfect. But I don't know that I'd want to bring in children. Not that I don't. Not from the perspective of like how awful those places. It's just I just don't see the point. For me, in terms of what I'm here to do, in terms of what I have time for. I mean, I'm too old now, but like in terms of like purpose and why I'm here, I wouldn't see the point. But you can look at it as a beautiful adventure. You can look at it as a scary, horrible place. That choice is yours, and then you can teach your children whatever perspective you want to teach them. So, yeah. But yeah, I mean, the whole my perspective on the physical now is just sort of like it is sort of the same way. It's like it's kind of pointless. Like, what was it for? It's there as an entertaining distraction. And I did go, so I did go out for coffee. I had one coffee. I had a latte, mostly milk. So I had a coffee shop on was it Friday or Thursday, something like that, because I wanted to change things up a bit, and I really enjoyed being there. I enjoyed the experience being out with, in normal society, but starting to think, well, I maybe I could go and do other things as well, but I'm just start thinking about it, and it just doesn't interest me enough to make me want to go. But it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, because it was quiet. Whereas the last time I went to a Starbucks, this wasn't a Starbucks, but when I did go, I went to a Starbucks last time. It was noisy and it was awful. Like it's so kind of cafeteria atmosphere, whereas this place was more subdued and quiet and kind of family oriented, and on the more mature side, like there were older couples there talking and stuff. So it was kind of interesting just to go out and do sort of mundane physical reality based stuff as an experiment. But yeah, I had a singular coffee. I'm still not drinking coffee on the regular though. But anyhow, well, it's 4:44. So any final words, or I'm just going to wrap this up. Is there any last things you want to say? We are perfect in our imperfections. Yes, well said, Mickey Mouse. Indeed. Yeah, like accepting our imperfections is tricky sometimes. No, nothing. All right, well, thanks everybody for joining me today. I'm so glad you were born. Thank you for your wisdom. Oh, that's sweet. Thank you. I'm glad you were all born. Thank you. Yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks for the chat. Night now. Thanks for the chat, True Love. Good night, all. Thanks, nobody knows. Thanks all for coming out. I appreciate your contributions to the chat. It was really good to talk to you all, and hope you're having a good weekend. If you're in Canada, enjoy the rest of your long weekend, and talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.